"Get out of my lobby. This place isn't for your kind." The words weren't a slip. They were delivered like policy loud, certain, rehearsed, and they hit the marble lobby like a gavel, echoing beneath the chandelier's glow. Guests froze mid-step. Luggage wheels stopped rolling. Even the quiet hum of the espresso machine seemed to fall silent. At the center of it stood a black woman in plain clothes, black t-shirt, dark jeans, sneakers, no designer bag, no glittering jewelry, no bodyguard shadowing her steps, just her. Calm eyes, steady breath. Across from her, the hotel manager leaned forward, fingers stabbing the air like a dagger. His navy suit was pressed, his jaw locked with false authority. Behind him, a blonde clerk smiled faintly, as if enjoying a private joke. Another staff member folded his arms, chest puffed with borrowed arrogance. The insult wasn't whispered. It was broadcast, meant to draw blood in front of an audience, and it landed. Guests along the wall shifted uncomfortably. A man in a gray jacket muttered under his breath, "Did he just say that out loud?" A woman clutched her handbag tighter, as if the accusation alone had weight. From the corner came a sharp sound. Click. A guest had raised his phone, camera red light glowing. He whispered, "People need to see this." But the woman did not move. She had seen this script before. At 16, standing in a Charlotte hotel lobby dressed in her Sunday best, told, "This area is for guests only," before being escorted to the sidewalk. At 24, turned away from a boutique hotel in Atlanta despite holding a confirmed reservation, forced to sleep in her car. At 30, delayed for hours in Los Angeles because her ID didn't match the image of a penthouse guest. Now, at 42, in the hotel she owned, her silence was not weakness. It was memory forged into steel. The manager mistook it for submission. He slammed his palm flat against the counter. "Don't stand there like you belong. People like you scam your way in, wave around fake cards, hope we won't check." The blonde clerk chimed in, her tone dripping with disdain. "Security will handle this. You'll be escorted out." The air shifted. It wasn't quiet anymore. It was charged, buzzing with tension that pressed against every wall of the lobby. A tourist whispered, "She doesn't look like trouble." Another voice answered, "Doesn't matter. They already decided." The black woman's eyes flicked toward the phone on the counter. Screen dark, silent, waiting. She didn't plead. She didn't argue. She simply placed her hands lightly on the marble, anchoring herself to the floor, claiming the space without a word. And in that pause, in that stillness, the balance of the room began to tilt. The insult had been spoken, the damage was done, but the reckoning it was only beginning. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now back to her. The manager didn't stop. Emboldened by the silence, he raised his voice louder, sharper. "You don't have a reservation. You don't belong here. People like you slip in with fake cards and think we won't check." 2. The clerk beside him smirked, tapping the desk phone. Her voice rang out, crisp and cold. "Security, we may have a fraudulent guest in the lobby. Unauthorized, possibly dangerous." The words sliced the air like a siren. Guests shifted uneasily. A young couple abandoned their place in line, dragging their suitcase toward the elevator. A mother pressed her hand on her daughter's shoulder, steering her closer to the wall. Whispers rolled through the room, heavy and relentless. But in the corner, a different voice cut through. "I'm filming this." A man with a baseball cap held up his phone high, live stream already pulsing red. "This is going online. People need to see what's happening." The blonde clerk sneered. "Record all you want. Policy doesn't change." The black woman still hadn't spoken. Her eyes followed the phone as it hovered, recording every gesture, every insult, every glance of disdain. She inhaled once steady, unbroken. Then she lowered her gaze to the marble floor as if weighing every stone in the foundation of the building itself. The manager mistook it for weakness. He snapped his fingers at the younger staff member beside him. "Take her card. Lock it up until the bank confirms." The young man obeyed quickly, opening a steel drawer behind the counter. He slid the black credit card inside with exaggerated care, slamming the door shut like it was a verdict. A grin spread across his face. "Done. Let's see how far she gets now." Gasps rippled through the lobby. A woman with silver hair exclaimed, "They just stole her card." Another guest muttered, "That's not policy, that's theft." But the manager only straightened, feeding on the moment. He jabbed his finger toward the door. "You're finished here. Walk out, or we'll drag you out." The black woman raised her eyes at last. No fear, no plea. Just a silence so sharp it felt louder than his shout. And in that silence, memories pressed harder. Atlanta, Los Angeles, Charlotte, each moment of erasure stacked upon the other. Yet here, in her own lobby, the insult didn't wound. It revealed. The clerk crossed her arms smugly. "You're wasting everyone's time. Leave before this gets worse." The live-streaming guest spoke louder now. "It already got worse. For you." His camera panned across the staff, catching every sneer, every smirk. The black woman placed her phone gently on the counter. Screen still dark. She tapped it once. Nothing flashed. No alerts sounded. Just a single whisper from her lips, soft enough to be almost missed. "Protocol active." The crowd didn't understand. Not yet. But the shift was beginning. The insult was no longer a moment. It was evidence, and the lobby had just become a courtroom. The manager's hand slammed on the desk once more, the sound cracking like a whip across the marble lobby. "Security!" he barked into the air. "Remove her. Now!" His voice carried like a public announcement, deliberate and humiliating. Guests exchanged uneasy glances. A man near the leather couches whispered, "This is getting out of control." The younger staff member, still riding the thrill of locking away her card, stepped out from behind the counter. His blazer stiff, his smile sharper than it should have been. "You heard him. Time to go." He reached forward, fingers brushing the woman's arm. The contact was small, almost subtle, but the effect was explosive. Gasps erupted. A woman near the check-in line shouted, "Don't touch her!" Another guest lifted her phone higher, capturing every frame. The black woman didn't move, didn't recoil. She stood as if her feet were anchored to the marble itself. Her silence was louder than the manager's shouting. But the clerk pushed harder, tugging at her sleeve. "Out!" he hissed. "You don't belong in here!" The words struck deeper than the grip. Around the lobby, guests stirred. One man in a gray suit muttered, "She showed ID. I saw it." A younger woman shook her head, anger rising. "This isn't policy. This is prejudice." The livestream camera caught everything: the shove, the words, the mounting tension. Comments poured in on the screen. "Unbelievable. Name the hotel. Justice better come fast." The manager didn't care. He raised his chin higher, arms crossed with theatrical defiance. "Frauds like this come in every week. They think a fancy card makes them real. Not today. Not in my lobby." His words hung heavy, venom dripping with each syllable. The clerk, still gripping her arm, added fuel. "Back where you came from. That's the only place you belong." The crowd erupted, no longer whispers, but outrage. A silver-haired woman shouted, "That's racist!" A tourist with a rolling suitcase muttered into the live stream, "He's finished!" Everyone's watching. The black woman finally lifted her eyes. Calm, steady. She didn't shake the clerk's hand off. She didn't fight back. She only spoke, her voice low but sharp as a blade. "Let go." The clerk faltered, caught off guard by the command that carried no volume but infinite weight. His hand dropped as if burned. The manager barked again, desperate to hold control slipping through his fingers. "Call the police. Tell them we have a trespasser. Make sure they hear the word fraud." The blonde clerk picked up the desk phone, dialing quickly. Her voice rose, rehearsed and performative. "Yes, we have an unauthorized guest, possibly using stolen credentials. She's aggressive." The lie sliced the air. Guests gasped again, outrage rippling like thunder. The live stream camera zoomed closer, comments flying faster. The black woman placed her hand lightly on her phone lying on the counter. She tapped once. Her voice, calm and deliberate, cut through the chaos. "You're destroying yourselves with every word." The room stilled. For the first time, the manager blinked, and the storm gathered. The lobby buzzed with outrage. Guests murmured louder, phones lifted higher. Yet in the center of the storm, she stood motionless, silent, untouched by the chaos swirling around her. The manager mistook it for hesitation. He smirked, leaning against the counter with arms folded like a self-appointed judge. "Call them faster," he ordered the clerk on the phone. "Tell the police she's hostile." The clerk nodded, her voice sharp and false. "Yes, she's refusing to leave. She's aggressive, possibly violent." The lies stacked like bricks, but before the weight could crush her, The black woman tapped her phone again. This time, she lifted it to her ear. Voice low but certain. "Activate protocol," she said. The lobby stilled, confused. The clerk paused mid-sentence. The manager frowned, scoffing. "Protocol? What are you babbling about?" On the other end, a calm voice replied instantly. Crisp. Professional. Understood. Logging the incident now. All systems active. "Do you want escalation ready?" "Yes," the woman whispered, her tone unshaken. "Prepare for immediate execution." Guests exchanged puzzled looks. The live stream caught every syllable. Viewers poured comments across the screen. "What's protocol? She sounds like she's in charge. This is bigger than we thought." "Taite." The manager laughed, brittle and loud. "Cute trick. Calling a friend? You really think anyone's going to save you? You're nothing here." But the words rang hollow. Because even as he spoke, one of the younger staff members at the concierge desk glanced nervously at his monitor. The system was flashing red an access alert he'd never seen before. His lips parted, but fear kept him silent. The woman lowered her phone, setting it gently back on the counter. She didn't look at the manager. She looked at the crowd, guests, witnesses, cameras all watching, all waiting. Then she spoke, calm but piercing. "You don't need to record. The truth is already logged." The man in the baseball cap lowered his phone slowly, stunned. "Wait, what do you mean?" She didn't answer. Not yet. The blonde clerk pressed the phone receiver tighter to her ear, desperate. "Yes, officers, please hurry. She's escalating." The guest live streaming swung his camera toward her, voice shaking with fury. "Escalating? She hasn't moved. She hasn't raised her voice. You're lying." The crowd rumbled in agreement. The balance was shifting. The insults no longer held the same weight. The performance of authority was starting to crack. And at the center, she stood still, eyes steady, breath measured. She wasn't fighting for entry anymore. She was preparing to reclaim the ground beneath her feet. The counterattack had begun. For a long beat, the only sound in the lobby was the false report crackling from the clerk's lips. "She's hostile. Yes, possibly dangerous." Then another voice, trembling but clear. "That's not true." Every head turned. The concierge, young, barely in her 20s, hair pinned back neatly, had stepped forward from behind her small desk. Her hands shook, but her eyes locked steady on the manager. "I saw her name this morning," she said. "In the system. Carter, penthouse suite. VIP flag. It's valid." The clerk on the phone froze. The manager snapped his head toward the concierge, face darkening. "Quiet. One more word and you're finished." But the damage was done. The words hung in the air like a spark in dry brush. Guests whispered. Some gasped. The live stream caught it all. Comments lit up. "Receipts don't lie." Finally, someone speaks truth. "Protect that girl." The black woman didn't move. She didn't need to. Her silence let the young employee's courage take center stage. The manager leaned across the counter, voice low and venomous. "You don't know what you saw, you're confused." The concierge shook her head. "I know exactly what I saw, and I won't lie for you." Gasps rippled again. A tourist with a stroller muttered, "She's brave." A businessman in a gray suit nodded sharply. "Took long enough." The clerk with the phone stammered into the receiver, suddenly unsure. Officers, just hurry." But her voice no longer carried the same confidence. The manager slammed his fist against the counter, louder this time. "Do not listen to her. This woman is a fraud." But his words no longer filled the room the way they had minutes earlier. The crowd had shifted. Authority was cracking. The woman in plain clothes finally raised her eyes, meeting the young concierge's gaze. For the first time, a small nod. Quiet, but full of weight. The concierge swallowed hard, then added louder, "Her reservation is real. She belongs here." The lobby erupted not in violence, but in energy. Guests whispered furiously. Phones lifted higher. The live stream chat exploded. The manager turned red, his voice sharp with desperation. "Security will deal with this. All of you stop recording." But it was too late. The witnesses were no longer silent, and the tide was turning. The manager's face flushed crimson, his jaw tight as if the truth itself had struck him. He turned back to the young concierge, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. "One more word, and you're done here. Do you understand? Fired. Gone." The lobby held its breath. The young woman's hands trembled, but she didn't step back. She stood firm, shoulders squared, her gaze steady. "I won't lie." she repeated, louder this time. Her reservation is valid. Gasps scattered like sparks. The live stream camera zoomed closer, catching the standoff in sharp detail. Comments poured in. That girl is risking her job. Hero energy. The truth always leaks. The blonde clerk slammed the phone receiver down, voice rising shrill. This is policy. People like her try this scam every week, flashing fake names, pretending they belong. It's disgusting. The words dripped with contempt, heavy and public. A guest in the corner muttered, "Did she just say people like her?" Another raised his voice, angry now. "You're profiling her. Everyone here can see it." But the staff doubled down. The young man who had locked away the card crossed his arms, sneering. "Scammers don't deserve respect. She's wasting everyone's time." The manager nodded firmly, feeding off the loyalty. He jabbed a finger toward the black woman again. "She's a fraud, a thief. You can all record this, but it won't change the fact she does not belong in this hotel." The words thundered across the marble, and yet something in the air had shifted. The audience wasn't buying it anymore. Murmurs rose, sharp with disbelief. A silver-haired woman shook her head. She showed ID. I saw it. A man with a suitcase whispered into the live stream, "This isn't justice. This is a witch hunt." The black woman still hadn't moved. Her silence was deliberate, surgical. It let the weight of every insult stack higher, higher until the tower of lies leaned so far it threatened to topple on its own. Her phone buzzed once on the counter. Quiet, controlled. She didn't pick it up. Not yet. The young concierge took a step closer, voice trembling but firm. "You can threaten me, but I won't deny what I saw. She has a right to be here." The manager spun on her, voice cracking with fury. "You're finished. Both of you. Security will escort you out together." For the first time, the black woman spoke not loud but steady, each word carved into the silence. "You just made the worst mistake of your career." The clerk scoffed. Big words from a liar. But the guests had already heard enough, and the balance of the lobby teetered closer to collapse. The words, "worst mistake of your career," still hung in the air when the young male clerk moved. He stepped around the counter, blazer stiff, jaw clenched, eyes locked on the black woman as if she were prey-cornered in his territory. "Enough," he spat. "You're leaving." Before anyone could react, his hand clamped onto her arm, harder this time, not just a brush but a shove. Gasps shot through the lobby like sparks through dry grass. A woman shrieked, "Don't touch her!" Phones tilted higher, recording every frame. The black woman didn't stumble. Her feet remained planted, steady as stone. Her eyes flicked down at his grip, then back up into his face. Calm, controlled. Her silence was sharper than any slap. The manager barked over the uproar. "Escort her out. Now, if she resists, call the cops and have her arrested for trespassing." The blonde clerk, her voice dripping with performance, snatched the phone again. "Yes, officers? The suspect is resisting removal. She's aggressive. Send someone quickly." Todet. The lies echoed across the marble, twisting reality for anyone not standing there to witness the truth. But here, in this lobby, dozens of witnesses had already seen enough. "She hasn't done a thing," shouted a man in a gray suit. "You're inventing this." A tourist with a stroller pushed closer, her voice trembling with outrage. "She showed her ID. You locked away her card. That's theft." But the staff doubled down. The young man gripping her arm shoved again, this time harder, forcing her back a single step toward the door. His voice was venomous. "People like you don't belong in places like this. Not in my hotel." The crowd roared in protest. A silver-haired guest cried out, "Not your hotel." Another added, "This is being streamed live. Think about what you're saying." The black woman raised her free hand slowly, placing it flat against the counter. She didn't resist violently. She didn't strike back. Instead, her voice cut through the noise, soft but lethal. "Finish that sentence," she told him. The young man froze, breath caught. His mouth moved, but no words came. The grip on her arm loosened slightly, but not enough to undo the damage already done. The manager, desperate, roared louder. "She's a fraud, a liar, a criminal. You think filming changes anything? Security is on the way. Police are on the way. She'll be gone in minutes." Aid. But the words no longer filled the space with authority. They reeked of desperation, and every phone in the room was recording the proof. The black woman turned her head slowly, surveying the lobby. Guests, Witnesses, cameras. She inhaled once, steady. Then, to her phone still glowing faintly on the counter, she spoke with chilling clarity. Escalate. Document every word, every action. The device buzzed, acknowledgement humming like a fuse being lit. The manager didn't hear it. He was too busy shouting. The clerk didn't notice. She was too busy spinning lies into the receiver. But the witnesses heard, and the tide of silence among them had broken. The line had been crossed, and the reckoning was no longer a matter of if, but when. The young clerk's grip lingered, his knuckles white against her sleeve. The manager barked orders into the chaos, his voice cracking under the weight of his own fury. The blonde clerk still whispered poison into the phone, building a fiction of aggression that had never existed. But the black woman's gaze never wavered. Her hand, still resting on the marble counter, slid toward her phone. One deliberate motion, one quiet act. She lifted it, pressed a single button, and raised it to her ear. Her voice was steady, calm, like steel wrapped in velvet. "Naya, escalate." The line clicked alive instantly. A woman's voice answered, crisp and professional. "Understood. Incident already logged. System escalation in progress. Do you want security override?" "Yes," the black woman replied. Her tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Lock every action from this moment. No deletions, no edits. Full audit trail." The concierge, the young one who had spoken earlier, watched with wide eyes. She didn't understand the full weight of those words, but she felt it. The air in the lobby shifted. Authority was no longer where it had been minutes ago. The manager scoffed, desperate to mask his unease. "You think calling your friend changes anything? We've already contacted the police. They'll deal with you." But a murmur rippled through the guests. They weren't looking at him anymore. They were watching her calm, her silence, her control. The live stream scrolled furiously. "Who is she? She sounds important. This isn't a random guest." The black woman lowered her phone just enough for her words to carry into the charged air. "Every second is being recorded at a higher level than you can imagine." The blonde clerk faltered, her voice hitching mid-lie. "Officers, please hurry. She's dangerous." But the crowd wasn't buying it anymore. A man in a navy suit near the back called out, "She hasn't moved. You're the ones escalating this." Another guest, phone raised, shouted, "This is evidence. We're all witnesses." The young clerk's grip slipped further, his bravado melting into hesitation. The weight of eyes, phones, truth pressing against him was too heavy to ignore. The manager, however, pressed on. "You can call whoever you want. You're still getting dragged out of my hotel." The woman turned then, her gaze slicing into him. For the first time, she spoke louder, not a shout, but a command that rang clear across the marble hall. "This is not your hotel." The words cut through the noise like a blade. Guests gasped. The live stream spiked with comments. "Wait, what? Did she just say it's hers?" The manager laughed harshly, shaking his head. A liar to the very end. Pathetic. But his laughter sounded thin, cracked, like glass already breaking. The black woman brought the phone back to her lips. Her final instruction was quiet, but the lobby seemed to hold its breath to catch it. "Nia, prepare ownership confirmation." And with that, the counterstrike was no longer hidden. It had begun. The air in the lobby vibrated with tension. Phones hovered higher, capturing every flicker of expression, every word. The manager straightened his tie, trying to summon control that had already slipped through his fingers. "You're wasting everyone's time," he barked, voice sharp, brittle. "Leave before you embarrass yourself further." But the woman did not move. She raised her phone, pressed a single key. A tone chimed through the speaker loud enough for all to hear. Confirmation request initiated. A crisp, automated voice announced. "Please state the property code." Without hesitation, she answered. "Horizon Grand. Owner override. Carter authorization." The concierge gasped. The young clerk's mouth dropped open. The blonde clerk paled, and the guests, those watching, recording, whispering, fell into stunned silence. The manager's face drained of color, but he forced a laugh that rang hollow. "Owner? You? Don't make me laugh. Owners don't dress like—" "Finish that sentence," she cut in. Her voice sliced clean through his words, leaving only silence. The phone chimed again. "Authorization accepted. Owner identity confirmed." On the monitors behind the desk, the system flickered. Her name appeared in bold. Aisha Carter. founder and majority owner. Gasps erupted like a wave crashing against the marble. Guests leaned closer, eyes wide. The live stream comments exploded. She owns the place? This is her hotel. They messed with the wrong woman. Well, the young concierge took a trembling step forward, her voice rising with conviction. She told you. She belongs here. She owns this building. The blonde clerk stumbled back, eyes darting to the monitor, to the manager, then to the growing crowd. That can't be, but the evidence glowed undeniable across every screen. The manager's laughter faltered, catching in his throat. His voice cracked as he tried to recover. This is some trick. Some kind of... Enough, the woman said louder now, her voice carrying the weight of command. You called me a fraud. In my own lobby. You stole from me. You put your hands on me. And you lied to every guest here, to the police, to yourselves. The room erupted in murmurs, fury boiling from the crowd. A guest near the door shouted, "She's the owner! We all saw what you did!" Another added, "You tried to humiliate her in her own house." Doe. The live streamer's voice shook as he narrated, "Everyone watching, you're seeing this live. The woman they tried to throw out is the owner. She just proved it." The woman stepped forward, each pace measured, unstoppable. Her presence filled the lobby not with noise, but with authority that needed no permission. She stopped at the counter, her eyes locked on the manager. Calm, cold, final. "This hotel doesn't belong to you," she said. "It belongs to me, and so does your fate." Tang zero. Silence swallowed the lobby, and in that silence, the balance of power shifted completely. The words, "It belongs to me," landed like thunder. The lobby erupted in gasps, shouts, the electric crackle of disbelief turning instantly into vindication. On the monitors, her name still glowed. Aisha Carter, founder and majority owner. No one could deny it. No one could erase it. The young concierge pressed her hands to her mouth, eyes wide. Relief and awe mingled on her face. Around her, guests began clapping, some tentatively at first, then louder, stronger, building into a storm of applause that rolled across the marble floor. Phones caught every angle. Live stream comments poured in like floodwater. She owned them. Manager's face stung you priceless. History being made in real time. The blonde clerk backed away from the counter, her once smug smile shattered into panic. "I didn't know," she stammered, her voice trembling, words unraveling into nothing. The young male clerk who had shoved her released his grip as if burned. He stepped back quickly, sweat gathering at his temple. His bravado dissolved, leaving only a boy caught in a storm he could no longer control. And the manager, his face drained of color, his jaw slack. For the first time, he didn't have words. He looked at her, then at the screens, then at the witnesses around the lobby. Every phone pointed directly at him. His authority had collapsed, not with a fight, but with a single undeniable truth. A silver-haired woman near the lounge raised her voice, cutting through the applause. "You lied to us. You lied to her." Another guest added, furious, "You put your hands on the owner of the hotel you work for." The live streamer's voice shook with excitement. They tried to humiliate her, and now the world's watching them drown in their own lies. The manager stumbled backward, his voice finally returning but broken, desperate. "This doesn't change anything. You..." But the words died under the sound of the crowd. Guests clapped louder, some even cheering. The marble hall filled not with his authority, but with their vindication. The young concierge stood straighter, courage swelling now that the truth was undeniable. She moved closer to Aisha, standing beside her like a shield. Her voice carried, strong and certain. "She is the owner. She always belonged here, and you tried to erase her." The applause roared again. The blonde clerk covered her face with shaking hands. The young man lowered his gaze to the floor, unable to meet anyone's eyes. And the manager, once towering, commanding, looked small, shrunken. His power had vanished, dissolved in the harsh light of truth and the eyes of every witness. Aisha Carter stood at the center, calm as ever, her silence heavier than any shout. And for the first time, it wasn't just her fight anymore. The whole lobby stood with her. The lobby still echoed with applause when Aisha lifted her hand, and the sound quieted as if commanded. Silence fell heavy, anticipatory, the way a courtroom waits for the verdict. She placed her phone on the counter, pressed one key, and spoke with crisp precision. Naya. Terminate Gregory Vance. Terminate Lauren Hayes. Terminate Kevin Patel. Immediate removal from Horizon Systems. Full access freeze. Effective now. Her voice wasn't raised. It didn't need to be. Every syllable carried authority sharp enough to carve through the marble itself. On the other end, her assistant's reply was calm, final, confirmed, processing termination. A beat of silence. Then beep. The manager's badge light blinked red. He swiped it against the monitor out of instinct, desperate, and the screen flashed access denied. Gasps rippled through the room. The blonde clerk's phone buzzed violently in her hand, then went dark. She fumbled, tried again, and a red error banner filled the display. She stumbled backward, horror painting her face. The young clerk's ID card beeped the same denial. His mouth opened, but no words came. He slammed it against the desk again, as if force could rewrite reality. But the system had already spoken. Guests erupted, cheers, applause, disbelief mixing into one storm of vindication. The live stream chat exploded. Fired. Live. She just locked them out in seconds. Justice served cold. The manager staggered, voice cracking. You can't do this. You don't have the... But his words died as the concierge, emboldened now, turned the monitor toward him. His own name glowed on the termination log. Gregory Vance. Access revoked. You're done, she said quietly. The blonde clerk whispered, almost pleading. Please. I didn't know. Aisha's gaze didn't soften. You knew enough. You chose cruelty over truth. The young clerk's knees buckled slightly. He pressed his badge against the desk one last time, the denial tone echoing like a funeral bell. Guests clapped louder, some chanting, some simply filming in awe. One man shouted, "That's how you clean house." A woman added, 9 minutes, and they're gone. 2. The live streamer's voice shook as he narrated. Everyone watching, you're witnessing justice. Not in a courtroom. Not in months or years. Right here, right now. The manager leaned heavily against the counter, face pale, sweat collecting at his brow. For the first time, he wasn't barking orders. He was silent, defeated. Aisha stepped closer, her presence towering though she hadn't raised her voice once. Her eyes locked on him, steady, merciless. This is my hotel, she said, and you will never set foot in it again. The applause thundered, rattling the chandeliers, and with that, the verdict was complete. The lobby was no longer the manager's stage. It was hers. Gregory Vance stood hollow, his badge useless in his hand. Lauren Hayes clutched her dead phone, trembling. Kevin Patel stared at the floor, every trace of arrogance drained from him. Their authority had evaporated in full view of the world. Around them, the guests roared with applause. Some filmed, some clapped, some simply watched in awe as the balance of power flipped on its head. What began as humiliation had ended as revelation. Aisha Carter raised her hand once more, and the noise softened into silence. She didn't shout to reclaim the room. She never had to. Her calm was command. She looked out over the crowd, dozens of witnesses, every one of them holding a memory of what had just unfolded. Some looked shaken, others looked inspired. All would remember. This is what happens when silence ends, she said. Her voice was low, measured, but it filled the lobby with weight. You tried to erase me in my own house. You called me a fraud in a lobby I built. And you believed your prejudice could stand taller than the truth. She paused, letting the words land. Every face turned toward her. Every camera held steady. But dignity does not need to scream. Justice does not need to beg. It only needs to act. Wanzerting. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, "That's real power." Another said, "She didn't raise her voice once." The young concierge stepped closer, her voice trembling but proud. "Thank you for not letting them win." Aisha turned to her, eyes softening for the first time. "No, thank you for speaking when it mattered." The live streamer's voice quivered as he narrated to thousands watching. 9 minutes. That's all it took. 9 minutes to turn injustice into justice. Aisha faced the room once more. Her final words were clear, deliberate. I don't need to prove who I am. The truth already does that. I am the result of every insult, every doubt, every attempt to erase me. And today, you saw what happens when those attempts fail. Applause thundered, shaking the marble floor. The chandeliers above trembled with the weight of it. Gregory, Lauren, and Kevin slipped away quietly, stripped of power, drowned by the sound of vindication. Aisha Carter stood tall in the center of her lobby, calm, steady, untouchable. And as the live stream ended, one truth remained. She didn't need to shout to deliver justice. She only needed to be exactly who she was,